Dr. Piercy. I teach middle school English and history. And so we're going to be talking today as a 7th grade group that I did. So first area I would probably ask is bell ringer course. And so I would ask them to come up and list an area of brain that the brain controls. So some of the answers that I have received when I did this were thinking body functions, like the body, and I go into like arms and legs and things like that. And then I tried to probe with them about what would be next. So what kind of thinking are we talking about? And so we would talk about some of our decisions and our attitudes and our choices. And so my idea with this lesson is I'm going to connect Phineas Gage, which is a scientific piece of writing. We explore that, how he has survived, how they used it for medical science, and then we jump into adolescence and the brain. So that's what we're going to start with.
Phineas Gage, a gruesome but true story about brain science. There is no argument about what happens next. Something or someone distracts Phineas. Whatever the reason, Phineas turns his head and strikes the granite. A spark flies onto the exposed powder. Blam! The drill hole acts like a gun barrel. Instead of a bullet, it fires Phineas's rod straight at her. This book begins on the date of Phineas's accident, September 13th, 1848. Around this time, trains were still the primary method of transportation. Tracks were set through mountains by using dynamite to blow tunnels through the earth. One of these tunnel builders was Phineas Gage. He carried a tool around with him known as a tamping iron, specifically designed to set the charges into the blasting holes. These charges would then be lit and the dynamite would blow a hole through the mountain to form a tunnel. While doing his usual explosive work, an accident occurs. No one knows how it happened exactly, but somehow Gage makes a mistake and an iron rod causes the dynamite to go off. The explosion sends Gage's tampering rod rocketing out of the hole and through his skull. Gage is quickly whisked off to town and seen by the nearest doctor. Somehow the accident altered Gage's personality. He went from friendly and amiable to ill-tempered and angry. This causes Gage to go through a series of jobs while his doctors still try to figure out what happened to his brain. There were a few different schools of thought about how the brain worked at this time. Was it a whole organism or did parts function individually? No one was really sure, and Gage's accident changed their method of thinking even more so. This would be a good book for otherwise reluctant male readers. It has an interesting, gruesome hook and does a good job of keeping the reader invested in the story. It has a gripping narrative as well as a good storyline.
Okay. So
Go from tossing and turning to resting and relaxing with a game-changing adjustable base by Revive. Discover the...
So what I would probably do here is, this is my introduction into what Phineas Gage is. And so we would talk about how it went through certain parts of his brain, because we are going to read it, we are going to explore what happened, how he changed, what could have been different. At the end of my unit, I usually do some type of alternate ending where like he didn't die after 11 years, instead he became Superman or something like that. They get some choices. So going into the adolescence part of the narrative here that I'm talking about today, this would be something I would open up with. And so I'm not going to play all of it for you, but I do want you to hear what they have to say. It was really good. This study was done by a woman across the world, actually. So.
There are three main reasons why we can confidently say that adolescence is an important, distinct biological period of development in its own right, in all cultures. First, you can see behaviors that we typically associate with adolescence, such as risk-taking, self-consciousness, and peer influence, in many different human cultures, not just those in the West. A study led by Lawrence Steinberg from Temple University in Pennsylvania, and involving scientists from around the world, investigated sensation-seeking and self-regulation in more than 5,000 young people from 11 different countries: China, Colombia, Cyprus, India, Italy, Jordan, Kenya, the Philippines, Sweden, Thailand, and the United States. Participants aged between 10 and 30 years completed a number of experimental tasks and filled in questionnaires. 2 tasks were combined with a questionnaire to provide a measure of sensation seeking, the desire to seek out novel experiences, which often involves risk taking. A measure of self-regulation was also taken, that is, the ability to control yourself and make decisions. Not all cultures showed identical development trajectories, but there was remarkable similarities across them. Sensation seeking increased between age 10 and the late teens, peaking at age 19.
So I would stop it here and just ask them, what do they mean by risk behavior, taking risks? And so we would talk about lots of different areas and different things they would do, like, riding on top of a car, or when they get angry, they just react. And we talk about how it's related to different parts of their brain. And I would introduce how this part is not completely formed until they're 25. So why that might be some of the issues of, like, when people say, why didn't you think before you act? They don't, because they act first. And so we talk about that, and it actually jumps right into, this is their curriculum that they use. It's called the Brain Science Unit. And so they actually do that where they correlate both of them. So it says that they mention behaviors associated with adolescence, like risk taking. So they get to give their examples of themselves here. I don't do all of the things in the curriculum. I kind of jump around a little bit just because that's what we're kind of supposed to do. But we do talk about, like, the next one is they keep going, reading in the study about mice and how they behaved with certain, like, impacts to their brain, and then they get to compare the two. Do they feel like adolescents also do this compared to the study by Steinberg about adolescent mice? And this is just kind of introducing them to scientific reading, which can be very hard, especially for low-level learners. And so try and take it piece by piece, explaining vocabulary, those kinds of things. And then finally, we'll go to the last part, which they get to write about themselves and how they feel like brain development affects them. So on this one, again, you see that they have the reading there if they forget. But we would talk about first, hey, how many of you, have some behaviors that, aren't so great? Okay. How many of you feel like society treats you fairly because you're an adolescent? And so we kind of explored that. And then the last thing they will do is write their own piece about what they think specifically, how some behaviors are more typical during adolescence. Do they agree or not? And then they have to use the text to provide the evidence. So this is scientific context reading, and then using the context to prove their thing.